Hi there, I'm Rick Heins, the Product Development Manager for Fender Amplifiers, and I'm at Kraft Music to talk to you about the new Hot Rod IV amplifiers. Hot Rod series is one of our most popular tube amps of all time. They have been for the past 20 years, and it's with great reason. They're very affordable, they take pedals really well, and depending on whether you're recording at home or playing large stages, they always sound great. Now, when it comes to the Hot Rod IVs, we wanted to make sure that we captured everything that people love about the amplifiers, but we did some tasteful modifications that we felt that players of today would really appreciate. We've got 4 different amplifiers here today. We have the Pro Junior, we have the Blues Junior, we have the Hot Rod Deluxe, and we have the Hot Rod Deville. Now, each one has its own unique thing going on, and we'll go through each one of those today as we're talking about the amplifiers and show a couple of different sounds that we feel are unique and really sound great. For my signal chain today, I'm using the American Pro HSS Hum Single Strat. And I did bring some Fender pedals along with me, which I will illustrate how they work with the amps, which is great. But for the most part, I want to play the guitar straight into the amplifier so you can hear the natural tone of each amp. So going into the amplifiers, the first one I'm going to talk about is the Pro Junior. That's 15-watt amplifier. It's a cute little amp, but don't let the cuteness fool you. 15 watts, it's plenty powerful. It sounds great for recording at home or playing in smaller combos. It's got 2 EL84 tubes, which give it a really distinct and unique chime when the amp is clean. But one of the modifications we did with the amplifier is a lot of times when people use this amplifier, they crank it up, and it has a great sound as far as distortion goes, but we've added a taper to the volume pot. So as you're using the amplifier on about 5, you're going to get this really nice, distinctive chime. And then as you crank the amplifier up, it gets more and more distorted, but it has this really nice sort of tweed-like character as you engage the overdrive and distortion of the amp. It does have a Jensen P10R speaker, which has that nice sort of vintage tweedy sound to it. And the lacquer tweed covering looks great on the amplifier. As I said, 15 watts. Don't let the smallness fool you. I'm going to play a little bit of the clean sound, and then I'm going to crank the amp up so you can hear how it sounds distorted. So that was the clean sound of the Pro Junior. Why don't we crank it up to about 10 and see how that sounds? The Pro Junior is really simple. You've got a volume and a tone knob. You set the tone to the right amount of brightness that you want for the guitar you're playing. And then what I like to do is crank the amp up, use my volume knob, and just ride that. So I've got my clean tones when the volume's down on the guitar, and then as I turn it up, I get that distortion. So it's a really great grab-and-go amplifier. Next up is the Blues Junior. Now, the Blues Junior is probably the most popular tube amp in Fender's history. And with good reason. It's lightweight, it's portable, it's a great volume, has tons of great tones. It's just the easy grab-and-go amplifier and has been for the past 20 years. So when we went to the Blues Junior 4 to do some modifications, we wanted to be subtle with it, but we felt that we added some things that will benefit players. First up is the Celestion A-type speaker. It is their American-style speaker, which gives it a really nice warmth and roundness. The other thing we did is we extended the low end in the amplifier, so you've got a bit more bass to play with than the previous iterations. That just gives it a fullness and a fatness. We also modified the reverb as well, so it's a little bit more behind the note. And when I say that, I mean you can crank up the reverb and get a great sound, but it never clashes with what you're playing. So it's a really nice, even-sounding reverb. We also played around with the EQing a little bit, so it's a much fuller, rounder, more mid-range centric amplifier. It's still 2 EL84 tubes, giving it 15 watts. And as I said, it has that wonderful reverb. So why don't we dial a couple of tones in. I'm going to start with the clean sound. I did mention that it does have a master volume. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank up the master a bit and turn down the gain so that you can hear a nice, warm, clean sound. And then I'm going to crank it up a bit, but bring the master down so you can play and get those like warm, overdriven blues tones at a moderate volume. All right, now I'm going to turn up the amplifier a bit, but bring down the master volume. I'm going to keep the reverb at about the same place so you can hear that even when I'm driving the amp and you're getting more distortion, the reverb never gets in the way of the notes that you're playing. You'll notice that with the Blues Junior as well as the Hot Rod Deluxe and Deville, we've given it a different makeover as far as the way that it looks. There's subtle things, but you know, it's got cream knobs now, which looks really nice and classy. But not just that, when you're on stage, it's a lot easier to see where your knobs are set because sometimes you're grabbing and going and getting your amplifier on stage. You need to know where everything's set up. Next up, the Hot Rod Deluxe IV. Now, this amplifier has been on stages around the world, and with good reason. They sound great, they're consistent. Tons of bands in the 90s and 2000s, that became their go-to sound. Another thing is they take pedals great as well. So you've got an effects loop, so you can run your time-based effects through that. But the thing is, it comes down to tone with these amplifiers. And they're 40 watts, they're two 6L6s, so they've got plenty of headroom when you're playing with a band and a loud drummer. But they've got 2.5 channels. So you've got the clean side, which is, you know, unmistakably Fender, great sounding reverb. You've got the second channel, which is going to give you either some blues, overdriven sounds. If you gauge the secondary channel, you're going to get more distortion. But when we went to revisit these amplifiers, the modifications that we did were, first and foremost, the speaker. We also changed it to a Celestion A-type speaker. We felt that that warmth and that roundness was really indicative of what the Fender amps were about. And then we also worked on the EQing on the overdrive channel. So the overdrive channel is a little less bright this time. It's a little bit rounder and warmer sounding. So even when you're engaging the secondary gain channel, you still have warmth and definition, even if you're playing single note lines for solos and stuff like that. The Hot Rod IV also features that wonderful Fender reverb sound. We've modified it slightly so it's a lusher, rounder, warmer sounding reverb in the amplifier. You can combine that with the effects, as I was mentioning earlier, to get some great tones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the clean channel side, give you a little bit of reverb and see how that sounds. Then I'm going to go ahead and engage the overdriven side so you can hear the distorted side. I'll kick up the gain to about 8 or so on that and bring the master down so you get a great sound at a lower volume. And then I think I'm also going to engage a couple of the delay-based pedals on the clean channel so you can hear how well it takes pedals. So now I'm going to engage the overdrive channel so you can hear how warm and rich that sounds. I'm going to crank it up to about 8 or so on the gain side. Leave the master down a bit so it's not too loud. One thing to remember about this is it's great playing with bands, but because of the way that it's been voiced, it actually sounds really, really good at lower volumes too. So if you're playing at home, you're going to get really great warmth and sustain even at lower volumes. Okay, that's the overdriven channel. I'm going to go back to the clean channel and use this just as a pedal platform. I've brought with me some Fender pedals. I'm going to engage a couple of things in overdrive and a delay and let you hear how that sounds. Another thing I should mention about the Hot Rod Deluxe and the Deville is that both amplifiers now have solid pine cabinets. Now, there are a couple of reasons why that's beneficial. One is it makes the amp lighter. Both amps are about 4 pounds lighter than the previous iterations, which is great when you're carrying these from gig to gig. But there are also sonic benefits to having a solid pine cabinet. It tends to make the amp more resonant, and the more you play the amplifier, the more resonant the amp gets over time. Last and certainly not least, the Hot Rod Deville. At 60 watts, this amp is no slouch. It'll hang there with the loudest of drummers. Sounds great on stages and studios around the world. And you've got 2 Celestion A-type speakers instead of the one in the Deluxe, which gives you a little bit more low end, a little bit more fullness to it. The modifications that I mentioned in the Deluxe are carried over into the Deville. So you've got that great Fender clean sound that we talked about. It's got that warmth and lush sounding reverb. And then on the overdrive side, you've got a bit more warmth and clarity due to the modifications in the tone stack. So as I said, clean channel sounds great. Switch over to the dirty side. You've got a lot more warmth and roundness. And then if you engage the other more overdriven channel, you've got a fullness so that when you're playing solos, the notes cut through, they sound warm and round, and chords sound great as well. Like the Deville, it does have an effects loop, so if you use time-based effects, it's a really great way to use it. You can also use it as a clean pedal platform, run the pedals through the front end, and you'll get an amazing sound as well. Like the Deville, it does have the lightweight pine cabinet, so that shaves off a bit of weight in there, which helps when you're carrying it from gig to gig. When you need the big guns to come out, this is the one to get. So let's start out with the clean channel, and I'll show you how warm and lush that sounds. I'll switch over to the overdriven channel, and I'll engage the extra overdrive so you can hear that as well. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and play a few pedals through it as a clean platform. All right, that's the clean channel. I'm going to switch it over to the overdriven channel so you can hear how that sounds. All right, I'm gonna go back to the clean channel right now. I'm gonna engage a time-based effect, delay, and I'm gonna add some distortion to it so you can hear how that sounds if you use pedals to get your distortion. If you'd like to learn more about the Fender pedals that I was using in this video, check out the other videos from Kraft Music. So there you have it, the Hot Rod IV series. Great amps that sound great with pedals, sound great with distortion, sound great clean. They're perfectly suited from everything from bedroom playing all the way to big stages. You've got the Pro all the way up to the Deville. Chances are there is a tone in there that you're gonna love. Check it out at craftmusic.com.